ውድ በእኛ ጊዜ ዩቲዩብ ተከታታዮች እንዴት ናችሁ? ሰላም ናችሁ? እንኳን ወደዚህ ቁም ነገር አዘልና ትምህርት አዘል ዩቲዩብ ቻናል በደህና መጣችሁ። ዛሬ በአዲስ ርዕስ መጥተናል። ይህ ኢንቨንተሪ በሚል ማለት ነው። ይህ ኢንቨንተሪ የምናይበት ነው። ኢንቨንተሪ በተለያየ ፖርሽን ብናገኘው በዋናነት እዚህ ፋንዳሜንታል አካውንቲንግ 2 ወይም ፕሪንሲፕል አካውንቲንግ 2 ላይ የምናየው ነው ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ ከዚህ በመነሳት ነው ኢንቨንተሪን አደርሊ በተለያየ እንትኖች ላይ የምናገኘው። ሞር ኢንፎርሜሽኑን ከዚህ ቪዲዮ ያገኛሉ ብዬ ተስፋ አደርጋለሁ። ይሄ ቪዲዮ ይመቻችኋል። ስለዚህ ከመጀመሪያው እስከ መጨረሻው ፓርት ብታዩት ለእናንተ ጥሩ ነው። ስለዚህ ወደ ቪዲዮአችን እንሂድ። ይሄ ፋንዳሜንታል አካውንቲንግ 2 ወይም ፕሪንሲፕል አካውንቲንግ 2 የመጀመሪያ ቻፕተር ኢንቨንተሪ የሚለውን ነው ማለት ነው። ይሄ ኢንቨንተሪ ስንል እዚህ የምታዩት ኢንቨንተሪ ስንል ምን ማለት ነው የሚለውን ነገር ነው ዛሬ የምናየው። ከዚህም በመቀጠል ኢንቨንተሪ በኢንቨንተሪ ኮስቲንግ ሲስተሞች አሉ። ሌላው ኢንቨንተሪ ሲስተም አለ፣ ዳን ኢንቨንተሪ ኮስቲንግ ሲስተም አለ። እነዚህ ነገሮች ነው ለማሳየት የፈለኩት። I only forward you the inventory system and inventory costing method. So when you come to see about inventory, the first topic is classification of inventories. The first topic is classification of inventory. So in this classification of inventory, though first of all we have to defining about the term inventory. ምክንያቱም ኢንቨንተሪ የተለያየ አሴቶች የተለያዩ ስለመሆናቸው እና የተለያዩ ካራክተሪስቲክስ ስላላቸው ኢንቨንተሪም አንድ አሴት ከመሆኑ የተነሳ እንዴት ነው ዲተርማይን እናደርገው፣ እንዴት ዲፋይን እናደርገዋለን የሚለው ነገር ማወቅ አለብን ማለት ነው። ሶ ኢንቨንተሪ አሁንም ከረንት አሴት ሆኖ ባላንስ ሺት ላይ ስለሚቀመጥ እንዴት ነው ከኢንቨንተሪ ዲፋይን እናደርገው የሚለውን ነገር እዚህ ቪዲዮ ላይ በቀላሉ ማየት ይችላሉ ማለት ነው። So when you come to defining about inventory it is an asset, or inventory it is a current asset. Inventory is a current asset or an asset item that held for sale in ordinary course of the business. So when company is holding about inventory for the resale purpose rather than for the using in the production purpose. Therefore, the term inventory is held for sales, or it is a good or a stock that is used in the production of cost of goods sold. So when you come to classification of inventory, it depends upon inventory can be classified on merchandise company or else manufacturing company. When you classifying the type of inventory, classification of inventory means nothing. That means what types of inventory that is holding by the company. So in order to know about the type of inventory which is holding by different company, we know the nature of that company. That means whether there is merchandise company or manufacturing company, unless service company do not have inventories. Okay, so when it comes to these types of inventory under merchandising company, what types of company they do have, or what types of company just they have. When I said that, so in merchandising company there is only one classification of inventory. So these types of inventory is merchandising inventory. Simply, merchandising company holding merchandise inventory. So the types of inventory which is holding by merchandising business is merchandising inventory, or holding one types of inventory, that is merchandising inventory. Why? Those companies hold only one types of merchandising inventory because those types of aim is to manufacturing, or they are not aim to just producing of the new thing rather than the purchasing of this merchandising from the manufacturing sector or the wholesaler to sell their customer without changing the shape as well as the quality of these types of inventory. Okay, so in merchandising company, the types of inventory is merchandising inventory. But when you come to manufacturing company, in this manufacturing company, then there are assume the name of manufacturing company. Those have to company to producing of anything or a raw finished goods. So in order to producing about finished good, in order to producing about the finished good, that means in manufacturing company there is a stage of production, or there is a stage of producing of the finished product. So in order to passing about those stage, there are different types of inventory within also those stages. Therefore, in manufacturing company, there are different types of inventory in order to producing about something. For instance, the stage of producing an output, there is input, there is process, then output. Therefore, in input, we have different types of inventory. Within in the process also different types of inventory created, and when completed or in the output case also different types of inventory is created. That is in manufacturing company. Therefore, based on the nature of the production, those manufacturing company have three types of inventory, or types of inventory which is holding by those manufacturing businesses. Three types of inventory. That is raw material inventory, one, working process inventory, when the working progress of the activities started, and lastly, when the activity of those manufacturing companies completed and produce a new thing or produce a product, therefore those product or those final output is finished good. Finished good. Therefore, the types of inventory which is holding by those manufacturing sector is the types of inventory. And when you come to see about this one, for merchandising companies, one types of inventory, one types of inventory. Therefore, regardless of the classification, whether the company is merchandising company or manufacturing company, types of inventory is stated on the balance sheet, under the current assets section when you come to see about this box. So keep in mind that manufacturing company has three types of inventory. Merchandising company have one type of inventory, that is classification of inventory. Classification of inventory. Okay, so to determining the inventory quantities, to determining the inventory quantity, just we have different reasons. No matter whether they are using periodic or perpetual inventory system, all company can to determining or need determining about the quantity of inventory at the end of the accounting period for different purpose. Different purpose. So physical inventory taking as two reasons. One, under perpetual system. One, to check the accuracy of inventory required, and to determining the inventory loss due to different spoiling and theft, as well as different inappropriate use of those types of inventory. Based on this, company which is about any perpetual system, they use the reason for physical inventory taking or counting of inventory for two reasons. Under periodic inventory system, to determine the inventory at hand, that means what amount of the balance of inventory in their hand, they must be taking physical counting of inventory, and to determining the cost of goods sold at the end of the period. At the end of the period, based on these two reasons. So, to determining the quantity of inventory involve two steps. One, taking of physical inventory of good on hand, and determining ownership of the good. አንደኛ ኢንቨንተሪያችንን በእጃችን ላይ ያለው ወይም ደግሞ ኢንቨንተሪያችን ምን ያህል ነው፣ ምን ያህል ኢንቨንተሪ አለን ለማለት ለማወቅ አንደኛ ፊዚካል ኢንቨንተሪ ካውንቲንግ ማድረግ አለብን በእጃችን ያለው። ሁለተኛ ኦነርሺፕ ኦፍ ጉድስ የሚለውን መያዝ አለበት ማለት ነው። Therefore, in order to determining about the inventory quantities, we have two steps. One, to determining about the ownership of the good, and taking physical counting of the inventory in our hand. So, in taking physical inventory involve it is counting, weighting, measuring each of inventory on hand. Okay, physical taking means we have counting here and weighting, measuring each types of inventory on hand, and also company often take inventory for business is closed or the business is low. Okay, when the business is closed or terminated, or if it is a slow growth, they can determine about the balance of inventory. At the end of the accounting period also, there are reasons that taking of the company to determine. So when you come to see to step off to determine the quantity of inventory, so when we determine the ownership of the good, because some inventory is still on the shipment, some inventory is still on transit, some inventory is still on the consignment basis. So in the first case, when the good is in transit, that means at the type of shipment, therefore the purchased good is not yet received, and the sold good is not yet delivered here. the sold goods is not yet delivered and the purchased good is not yet received. So goods in transit should be included in inventory of the company. Inventory of the company that has a legal title to goods, legal title determined by the terms of the sale. So in order to determining about the ownership of the good, we should to determining the legal term. We should to determining about the legal term of the good. The legal term of the good. Goods in transit, for instance, look here simply. Goods in transit. Look, to determining the ownership of the good, assume XYZ company is to determining the ownership of the good, then he determine when the FOB shipping point, when the term is FOB shipping point. Therefore, when there is FOB shipping point, therefore the ownership of the good is passed to the buyer when the public carrier accepts the good from the seller. Look here is the seller place and here is the buyer place. Therefore, when the public carrier is just received the good from the seller and the term the FOB shipping point, then the ownership of the good is already evidenced. When you come to this one, when you come to FOB destination, when the term FOB destination, we should exclude the inventory because still the ownership of the good is the seller until the good is reach on the buyer place. Until those goods reach on the buyer place. Therefore, when the ownership title is passed to the buyer, reach on the buyer place, or when the good is received by the buyer. When there is FOB shipping point. Therefore, we should recognizing the term under goods in transit. If it is a FOB shipping point, those goods are as we. But if the good is FOB destination, so the ownership of the good is transferred from the buyer to the seller as at the buyer price rather than the seller price. Because still the owner of the good is the seller, but the ownership of the good is transferred from the seller to the buyer is when the buyer receives the good or the seller reach the good on the buyer place. That is. In another case, for increasing our revenue, company can receive the consignment goods. So there is a consigner and there is a consign. Consign means nothing. Consign means the one who is sole behalf of the consigner. Consigner is the owner of the good. So to hold the good of other party and try to sell the good from them for fee or consignment fee, but without taking off the ownership of the good is consigning the person who is holding of the good from the other party and try to them for sale for fee as consigning. So this types of good which is holding by the consignee is not the ownership of that person rather than the ownership of the consignor. So the ownership of the consignor should be included when the consign that means when there is a consigned goods, so we should exclude those types of goods which is holding for other consign other company. Okay, so that means if the company to determining the consigning goods, he must be the owner of the good rather than behalf of the good. Okay, behalf of the good. So there is consigning is not the owner rather than behalf to sell the good, and consigning the owner of the good. So the owner of the good should be counted side types of good. Okay, side types of good. So when you come to see this one, just we can do determining about the term of this one. Look here, doing company completed is inventory for simplicity, which can just I forward the illustration as we talked before. So then Yaping company completed its inventory count. It arrived at total inventory of yen to 100,000. You have been given information listed below. Also, additional inventory goods are here. So, here is the total balance of inventory when it counts. But additional information are here. 1. Any company included inventory good held on consignment for failed company. Look, any company is the consignee, and whole corporation is the consignee. So, from whole corporation, any company received the good. So, from simply who is the owner of the good? That is Files Corporation. Files Corporation is the owner of the good. Therefore, look here. Any company included in inventory goods held on consignment of the good. Therefore, Danny is not the owner of the good, which is the balance is in 15,000. Therefore, he must be reduced this one because he is not the owner of the good. Rather, he is the consignee for selling behalf of the feeding corporation. And the other thing, the company did not include in count of purchased good in 10,000 which are in transit FOB shipping point. Look here, when the term is FOB shipping point, then Danny is the owner. Danny is the owner of the good, therefore directly add this one because he still did not recognize this type of the term of FOB shipping point. The other, Danny did not include it. Look here, Danny did not include it. Included in the counting of inventory held sold cost with the in transit of FOB shipping point. So he also included this one. But if here is FOB shipping point, we should not add and we should not subtract because still he did not add this balance. If FOB destination is here, rather here is FOB shipping point, still he didn't recognizing about this balance, so he must be added in this amount. Then he arranged the previous by adding or adjust this the three thing. Okay, so in order to determining about the balance of inventory and the ownership of inventory in such way, so we must be determining about the cost of inventory. Like other assets, inventory have its own cost. So a company can purchase different item or similar item of inventory within the year. So he must be determining about the quantity of inventory. So like the cost of goods sold as well as the total cost of the inventory. So in order to determining about the cost of each inventory, company can determine different method, to determining about the balance of the quantity of inventory or the quantity of their inventory with their costs to arrive about the total cost. So in inventory counting for just at cost, when counting inventory is counting at cost, that means cost included all expenditure necessary to acquire goods and place them in a condition ready for use. That means once when the inventory is purchased, we should include all costs necessary to acquire and get ready for use the inventory. So, but when come to FOB shipping point from the seller, then when purchasing inventory under FOB shipping point, we included the cost. But if the company after purchasing or if the merchandise company after purchasing inventory and distribute to the customer, so the selling expense for the customer, the selling cost incurred by the merchandise is not included the cost of inventory. Rather than that is selling expense or merchandising expense, selling expense or advertising expense, whatever. So not included under the cost of inventory. Rather, the cost of inventory is all expenditure necessary to occur or a place ready to or a condition ready for use as the cost of inventory, we can say. Okay, we can say. So in order to determine the unit cost are applied on the quantity to compute the total cost of the inventory. So the cost of goods sold using the following method can be determined in different methods here: specific identification method, first in first out method, and average costing method. First in first out FIFO method and average costing method is the most common costing method, cost flow assumption or costing method to determining about the cost of an inventory. So when you come to see here, under specific identification method, here is an impractical method. Specific identification method is an impractical method or is less accurate method to determine about the quantity of inventories or the cost of inventory because specific identification method is only used when there is specifically identified which goods is purchased with the date and which goods is sold. So the company should be follow from the starting of the purchasing date up to the completion period. Therefore, specific identification method are just useless when there is less specific identification about those goods. So when you come to see this one, creative company purchased 3 identical 50-inch good. Okay, እዚህ ጋር የአንድ ካምፓኒ 3 አይነት ኢንቨንተሪዎች ገዝቷል ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ ክሬቲቭ ቲቪ ካምፓኒ creative TV company purchase 3 identical inch TV in different rates at the cost of guest. Here is 3 types of cost here during the year.